Amazing. All right, I'll kind of give like 30 more seconds. Thanks for joining us, everyone, on this Wednesday. I just said it was Tuesday to somebody, then I realized I was behind instead of normally I feel like I'm ahead. So I was very excited about that. Right. Seeing a few more people trickle in. All right, well, we have a jam-packed hour for you, so I am going to go ahead and get started. I am thrilled to be hanging out with you all again today. My name is Stephanie Kemp, if you don't know me. I am our VP of Customer Experience here at Bridge. I host a lot of our workshops and webinars, so you may be familiar with my face of doing a lot of product enablement type webinars. But today I have the privilege of being joined by some of my colleagues, partners, but also friends from AICPA, where I have been specifically their partner account manager for the last 4 years since they started working with Bridge. So today I'm joined by Erica Yeoman, who is the director of learning products at AICPA. Kristen Henry, who is the strategic organizational learning and development partner at AICPA, and then Margaret Roydy, who is a learning product manager. And I just have to plug that I'm used to working with software product managers all the time at Bridge. And it's been really fun to work with Margaret with a little bit of a different lens where she has both the technical and strategic background, as AICPA is a content provider. If you're not familiar with AICPA, just give you a little bit of a high-level overview. They are the largest global professional membership organization for finance and accounting professionals, representing the profession across public accounting, business and industry, government, and academia. Together, the AICPA and CIMA supports hundreds of thousands of professionals worldwide through education, credentials, standards, and thought leadership. So they came to Bridge in around 2021, and we started to have a conversation around the tech stack, not just the LMS, but the tech stack that they needed in order to be able to deliver all of their education and training. Learning is a core part of how the AICPA serves the profession, which is why Bridge plays such an important role in their learning ecosystem. And again, just want to emphasize this is an ecosystem. There are a lot of moving parts to their brand, and the LMS is a really primary one of them. The AICPA uses Bridge to support both B2C learners, delivering high quality, role relevant learning experiences directly to individual professionals, and B2B clients, partnering with firms and organizations to help them develop talent, build skills, and support ongoing professional development and compliance. For all of my Bridge peeps out there, I do want to give you also a little high-level overview of the architecture. So AICPA uses their root account as an admin hub to be able to support, implement, and then manage a 100 or so B2B clients that they support. And then they have, and those are all in sub-accounts, independent sub-accounts where they're delivering their training to each of those individual B2B customers who are going to be using different forms of their content. And then they have one B2C sub-account, which is the primary volume of users who also are able to go into a storefront, purchase content, be part of membership organizations, and get access to some subscription type services that are all available through the Bridge LMS. Today, our conversation reflects how the AICPA approaches learning overall with a focus on scalability, relevance, and real-world outcomes for both individuals and organizations. And just to give you a little bit of a timeline of our partnership together, we launched in 2022 with that B2B relationship. Also, a big part of it was enabling their team to handle L1 support. In 2023, we then went live with the B2C platform, which was about 75% of the learners that come through the AICPA or through that B2C platform. We enhanced the storefront integration, and then we also went live with their live training integration. Fun fact that AICPA delivers about 50% of their training that's live. And then why we're all really here is that at the end of last year, they did an upskilling pilot where they were able to be in contact with 26 separate firms. 175 people voluntarily came to this vision that they put together in about 30 days, where those 175 participants completed 190 courses, and with a beautiful NPS score of 33, people were just able to give a really, really valuable feedback as we are looking to take next steps together. Obviously, AICPA doing the whole of the work, but being able to go live with this upskilling program based on what they're seeing inside the industry. So I am going to pass over to Erica now, who's going to give you some high level on how this strategy even came to life. And then we're going to walk through the pilot, the success of the pilot, and then we will absolutely have questions at the end where we can answer those for you.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie, for that wonderful introduction and timeline of the journey together so far, and what brings us here today, right? We're really excited to share how AICPA and Bridge have partnered to pilot a new approach to professional learning. So first, we always start with the why, right? From a product management standpoint and what the market is saying. And so across the profession, we're noticing several forces are converging at the same time. The skills required in the profession are evolving rapidly, and global research is suggesting this change is happening within the next few years. So we know the industry is changing. So let's take a look at what the market is telling us. What is changing in the accounting profession? There's a generational workforce transitioning. Approximately 75% will be eligible for retirement within the coming decade. Here, that has been coined as the silver tsunami. This means that we are entering a period where knowledge transfer, workforce development, and capability building will be more important than ever. Around 40% of our professional skills are expected to evolve. These statistics alone signal a major transition for the profession, and at the same time, organizations are adopting tools and driving technologies. So with AI, automation, and advanced analytics, professions are increasingly expected to move beyond technical execution and toward a more strategic advisory role. So before the teams dive into the pilot, let's take a quick look inside the thinking that led us here and how it started with a very intentional strategy. From a learning product perspective, our goal wasn't just to build something new, it was to rethink how learning should work for this profession going forward. So if the why is about how the profession is changing, the approach is about how we're evolving with it. It's about reframing learning from content delivery to capability development and designing for flexibility and relevance, not just completeness. To enable that shift, we needed more than content. We needed a scalable foundation. This is where Bridge comes into play. The engine is what is allowed to operationalize this strategy at scale. It gives us the ability to move from isolated learning experiences to connected learning journeys. When you align the approach and the right engine, you start to see the different type of outcome. So next, we're going to get into what the team did from a pilot standpoint. So let's take a look at the results. The team will share some early results and insights. They'll walk through the pilot experience, what we built, and what we're learning. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to the team who brought this to life. Thank you.
So at this point in the journey, we had a really important realization. The challenge wasn't interest in client advisory services. The challenge was really where to begin it. Client advisory services, or CAS as it is known within the profession, has been the fastest growing niche in the industry for about 10 years. And we kept on hearing firms say things like, we know advisory matters, but we're not sure how to structure the learning to support it. We don't know how to get our people to think more strategically within the finance function, and we want progress, not another initiative that fails. So our approach had to be to meet firms where they were, not a perfect future state where we'd assumed they'd be. And that meant starting small, being intentional, and focusing on momentum over perfection. So back in the fall, to set some context, our plan was really straightforward. We planned to unveil a proof of concept to the CAS community, methodical, data-driven, and strategic. And then reality intervened. In a matter of days, it became clear that to truly meet firms and our members where they were, a proof of concept wasn't going to cut it. We needed a fully executed pilot, and we had 8 weeks to deliver it, and the pressure was intense. We had to make deliberate choices about what mattered most in the moment and what could wait. So that meant we had to prioritize two things. One was the role-aligned learning so that people could actually see themselves in the pathway. And the second was a usable, intuitive experience so that the learning could actually be adopted. To move at the speed our members required, we intentionally had to deprioritize things like NASBA compliance and condense certain aspects of course development, not because they weren't important, it's just that they weren't needed first. What we knew going into the pilot was that firms were asking their people to make a significant leap from a compliance mindset to an advisory one, from a tactical thinking to strategic, and sometimes without a clear bridge to get there. We knew the skills gap existed. Our baseline data confirmed that. What was missing was a guided role alignment and a scalable framework to support the progression. The pivot and then the pilot became the solution, not because it added more content, but because it created clarity, confidence, and consistency. So the CAS niche didn't grow inside the traditional bounds of audit and tax, which made it coming up with the solution more challenging. It grew in response to the market. And in many ways, CAS is like the wild, wild west. It's fast, entrepreneurial, highly individualized, but as it scaled, the cracks started to show. Firms were telling us that they were struggling to define the expectations. Practitioners weren't sure what good looked like at each stage of their career, and clients were getting very different experiences depending on who they worked with. And one of the strongest signals that we kept on hearing was that we need a shared language and shared expectations, not just within a firm, but across the profession. Our firms and members were asking us as the AICPA, as the member body, for guidance. And that's exactly where a unified, role-aligned, skills-based learning system comes in. It creates a shared language by clearly defining the skills required for real CAS roles. It aligns the learning to what people are actually doing, not just abstract check-the-box exercises. And it supports progression so that practitioners know what's expected today and what comes next. This wasn't about compliance. CAS practitioners truly value real learning. Learning that integrates the strategic and critical thinking with core accounting and finance competencies. Learning that is intentionally sequenced into progressive pathways, and learning that provides the scaffolding practitioners needed to build the confidence as they grow. So by building those scalable learning, skills-based framework for the profession, the firms can then accelerate their capabilities across their team and deliver high quality advisory experience, no matter what practitioners are and who they're working with.
And I just kind of want to shameless plug that you guys are obviously you are, like you said, the governing body for this specific industry. I would love any feedback in the chat from, I understand that most of our Bridge demographic is holding a lot of departments accountable, HR, L&D leaders in here. If you resonate with this in any way, this request for standardization, your people being hungry to learn. Please feel free to make any comments in the chat. I am monitoring it and ask any questions, but just want to connect those dots that this is, to me, such a universal thing, even though you guys are so hyper focused
and that was
on
like the
this one
biggest
thing.
shift, Stephanie, was like that we are, as the profession, we have that compliance mindset into all of our training, and that this was such a major shift for us in how we were creating the learning, because the CAS practitioners differed from tax and audit so much. They actually do want to learn for learning's sake, not just because they have 40 CPE that they have to get done. And so for us, the focus and the emphasis really needed to be about like how they do their jobs better and how they show up.
Yep. Love it. Love it. Love it. Right.
So once we committed to the pilot, which from the day we were told that it had to be done, we had 8 weeks until we had this massive presentation in front of many of our members. We had to be just as disciplined about how we showed up. So the pilot started with intentional messaging, being clear for who it was for, what it was meant to do, and what it wasn't. We focused on the CAS community and the early adopters who were ready to learn by doing, knowing that their guidance was going to be critical in shaping what came next. So we embraced urgency, not rush, progress over perfection, and we designed the pilot as a way to learn, iterate, and continue refining. Collaboration and feedback weren't optional. They were the mechanisms that we embedded for improvement. We balanced our internal realities with external needs, knowing that learning only works when it's sustainable over time. So this wasn't about testing theory. This was about learning in real environments with our practitioners and committing to supporting them as we continued this journey forward.
And I'm going to pass over to Margaret here, but just want to emphasize Kristen's points on the immediacy at which they needed to go live with this, and the fact that perfection could have been a blocker to going live. And so much of what I hear from our Bridge community is like, I don't know if we're ready, it's not ready. And I hope that this inspires you, that if the world's largest organization that is doing this can say, you know what, this is going to be messy, but we're going to go anyway because we're going to be thoughtful about it. I hope that as Margaret kind of goes through how this came to life more in the weeds, that this can inspire you to maybe do the same with your population, and finding those people who are passionate about learning for learning's sake, who can give you that real-time feedback.
Excellent points. Thank you, Stephanie. So here, this is one of my personal favorite parts of the story, because this is where the work really started to come to life. It all began with customer feedback, clear, consistent signals that practitioners were asking for support in this space. That feedback created urgency, and we realized that we needed to move very, very quickly to launch a pilot so we could learn. We needed to understand in a very real way whether this was an area of the profession we should even be in, and whether we could truly meet customer needs in this particular space. Practitioners were candid about what advisory actually looks like in practice, what's working, what's not, and where the gaps are. Subject matter experts and learning designers help translate lived experience into practical, buildable skills. Ultimately, it was our cross-functional teams that came together that managed to turn insight into action. That collaboration led us to a defining make or break moment. We really, truly had to ask ourselves, is this where we belong? Are we ready to show up for customers in the way they need and expect us to? So we didn't make assumptions, and we certainly didn't over-engineer solutions. There was no time for that. Instead, we were very, very deliberate. We brought together the right mix of internal and external teams. We used a hybrid resourcing model to move quickly without sacrificing quality. From day one, the timeline, as we mentioned, was extremely aggressive, but it was truly necessary so we could learn quickly and move with purpose. Everything had to work by design. We built content that was grounded in real advisory scenarios. We recruited pilot participants who were truly deeply engaged, but most importantly, we listened. We monitored progress in real time. We analyzed results and held post-pilot conversations to better understand not just what worked, but most importantly, why. Those insights continue to inform our path forward today. So by the time we reached phase 4, the results, we weren't guessing anymore. We weren't just hoping that we were on the right track. We had real data, and a lot of it. Real feedback from practitioners who took time out of their very busy, fully packed schedules to participate in this effort. And real insights that this approach was meeting learners where they are and making the bridge to help take them where they need to be. So whether they came from a small firm, a large firm, or anywhere in between, what stood out the most to us was the level of engagement and the consistency. Across different firm sizes and different levels of readiness, we saw the same pattern. When learning pathways are flexible, practical, and grounded in real advisory work, people didn't just participate, they actually showed progress. That's when we knew we weren't just building content, we were really building confidence and a path forward for this area of the profession. So these numbers, they matter more than words can fully capture. What they represent is even more humbling because behind every data point is a real practitioner, a real learner, someone who chose to show up and be part of this pilot, someone who made time and trusted us enough to engage fully. And at this point, I think it's important to note that there was no continued education credit offered for participating in this effort. This makes this type of level of engagement even more meaningful. People participated because the work felt relevant, valuable, and it was actually worth their time. We really were blown away. We still are. And it's not just the level of participation, but it's the quality of it. People weren't skimming, they weren't checking boxes, they were actually actively engaging and reflecting. And that is really what told us something powerful. When learning is relevant, when it respects learners' time, and when it connects directly with the work that they're doing, people lean in and they commit, they stay engaged, they build confidence. So that's what gave us the confidence to move forward. It wasn't just to continue, but what it remains true to be the case today is to scale. So it's not just a success in theory, it's a success in practice that's now validated by the very people we're here to serve.
I want to pause for a second, Margaret, because in prepping for this, I want to also hit home again. This line stands out so much to me that when learning is relevant and it respects learners' time, and it connects to the work they're doing, people lean in. I just think that is such a powerful statement and probably something that everybody in this room is feeling. And I don't want to totally derail because I know we're going to go into long-term and post-pilot goals. But how did you get these people to even volunteer themselves? Because you weren't giving them credit. What did that process look like?
Yeah, and I'll turn that over to Kristen because it speaks to the incredible work she was doing all of these years behind the scenes and how much this particular product line was needed. So Kristen, floor is over to you.
Yeah, Stephanie, these are busy people. We all work with busy people. And when we started it was like November 1st, we had 10 people that had agreed to do this. And and the pilot was closing December 1st, right? And so the fact that we increased the number of active practitioners participating in this goes back to what we were saying before about people really wanting to lean in, this being important. But I would say it was really around like we had to continue asking and reprioritizing this for them and just being like, hey, just wanted to let you know we had 4 phases of this pilot, and at every moment people could have and did drop out. We had an attrition rate, but it wasn't big. It was 10%, which was like considering not as much as I thought we would have from phase 1 to phase 4. But it was really about just reaching out to them consistently, framing things, and making sure that they had the time and they knew that this was continuing to go on. So there was a lot of communication. And I think that, we made sure that we were structuring the communication in a friendly way that was approachable, and that the learning also, and Bridge, this is where it comes in. Bridge was easy for them to access. Bridge made it very accessible for them to get into the learning and to engage in that and to engage in it in that respect. So they were able to, let's say, start something because they are busy and then pause and come back to it, and so that they could complete it. So I think it speaks to a couple of different elements for why why we were able to get the momentum and the number of active practitioners involved.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Erica.
I was just going to add to that the upfront work and the way that the story was developed and the interaction became infectious. And so it turned from us reaching out to ask for participants to then people asking, how can I participate? So that dynamic changed, and it really does go to exactly Kristen and Margaret in how they set those foundational pieces up to interact and work closely with those different groups. So definitely kudos to both of them on setting that foundation.
One of the administrative friction points that I often hear when working with, HR L&D leaders who are maybe doing something that you've done here, is some of the project management hurdles of like, how often do I follow up with them? Is there going to be notification noise if I'm just every day? Are you done yet? Are you done yet? I mean, you can see in Bridge like the completion, but like, did you like it? So can you maybe give a little bit of insight into how that looked as part of the project?
Yeah, I mean, it was constant. Don't get me wrong. It was constant. But here was the thing that was like really validating was that every time I reached out to the practitioners, more people completed it, right? More people completed a course, more people completed the survey. And so that in itself became infectious, because I was like, ooh, if I reach out, I'm going to get, we're going to get a bump in our numbers, right? So, and I mean, I think it's being your approach has to be a bit friendly, right? You're not, you're badgering, but you're being friendly about it.
A sweet badger.
It's a sweet badgering.
Again,
just like helping them to reprioritize things, to get it at the top of their inbox. Because again, it wasn't like they were meaningfully ignoring us, right? They're doing billable work, right? Those are their priorities. And so it was just that friendly reminder to get that to the top of their inbox, to be like, hey, FYI, we've got, 5 days until DCPA where we need to present and we need to get all this data back. So I do think the other piece that also helps is having a concrete deadline and what you're working toward, because that really helped to build the momentum of like, this can't just stall, right? This can't just like kind of fizzle out. Like there's something that we're all working toward.
Go ahead, Margaret.
And that was a process that was true both for the customer end of it, but also the internal. We truly utilized cross-functional teams. We worked in ways that we may not have had the opportunity to do so before. And that similar experience was truly consistent, both in the way that we handled the interactions with our customers, but also with our internal team members who were helping support these efforts. It was constant, perhaps annoying in some instances, but it was all worth it. And there was a logic to that madness.
Yeah. And how did you get those evaluations? Were they at the end of the coursework, or were they, we send these all via mass email on X date?
Yeah, it was external. Again, with the time constraints that we had, we couldn't embed the survey at the end of the courses. That's just not how we had developed them.
Yeah.
So there were these gated checkpoints of like once we were getting those learner transcripts from Bridge, we would then turn that into a separate workflow where we would send them Microsoft Form surveys. And so, like I said, when we only had a 10% attrition, knowing that there were these disjointed and there were like ways of having to move from different phases, we're really surprised at how many people followed through all the way to the end.
Yeah. And those end of course evaluations, they were a pretty heavy lift, not just for us, but for each learner who successfully completed a given course. Multi-part sections. We didn't just have the multiple choice aspects. We truly wanted to understand what worked, what resonated. And one area that we haven't really touched on was the fact that each particular course, so we made 4 pilot courses available, but each course had a different level of instructional design interactivity built in.
Okay.
So we were testing for everything. We're testing for the content, the level, but also what type of interaction within a given course is just enough. So we wanted to know a ton through this pilot.
Yeah, I was going to say something that's not really on here, but I think is a really important piece to recognize is the different modalities that you also used in this distribution, not only to understand, hey, was this journey programming effective, but also like, how did you learn best via these different methods that we were able to use? How did you go about, because this felt like a very, and we all have this in our own companies, right? You as a department, you have a project, or you as a team, you have a project. How did you go about getting some of these other SMEs to buy into, yeah, we'll contribute X amount of time to what you're doing?
I think it comes down to leadership and having the leadership support and alignment around the strategic goals. And I think it goes back to those earlier slides that Erica spoke to. It wasn't just us going rogue for the sake of going rogue. The customers that we support had very specific feedback, and the feedback that they were providing was kind of like red flagging aspects of the strategic direction that we want to go toward, feedback that Kristen had been collecting for quite a while. There were moments that we had to remind ourselves internally as to why we do this, as well as externally, and what the big picture goals are. It was quite an experience. It has been extremely rewarding looking back now, but in the moment when you have the timelines, the particular public events that we spoke about earlier, big presentations in public forums to make sure that everything aligns, it was challenging. Kristen, Eric, I'm curious about your thoughts too.
I was going to say it's really about a shared vision and communicating the vision. And once you have people buying in on a shared vision and what you're working toward, the alignment comes from that. I would say that's what I.
Yeah. And I think also too, right, it was a learning journey for all of us. We were learning something every day of what definition, assumptions, all of those things mean across departments, because this was a new framework experience that we were trying to test out. And so the evolution of not only the way we manage our processes internally, but then how do you partner with an external company, right, that is going to help facilitate those skills and learning journeys, and how do we make that connection of our LMS ecosystem versus our delivery output and what that content looks like. So there was a breadth of conversation, and we all learned a lot. And I see that we are closer as teams through this process. So when we say challenging, it was challenging in a positive way, because we all learned a lot, and looking forward to more of these in the future. A much better grasp on our outputs.
Yeah. When you say, this is my last question, then we'll go through the long-term kind of vision and post-pilot goals. When you say practitioner, do you mean each individual end user, or could maybe the leaders on our call here as the audience maybe view like the B2B kind of point person as maybe a manager internally that's like a department leader who they're working with directly, or were you actually going to like all the end users themselves, or did you have kind of like a middle person who led at the business that you were primarily talking with?
It was both.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we used a one-to-many approach for a lot of that. And then as Erica was saying, like as momentum started to grow very organically outside of what we had started ourselves, then we started communicating directly with like a lot of the end users, because they were like, we just found out about this from, our friend. Can we join too?
Love a friend referral. Love a friend.
And just a quick example, as right, you would have a manager of a department, and they would say, I have a team that's multi-generational, multi-global. I have to be able to train and evaluate where they are so they can self-assess, go through training. And so you went from them perhaps going through one level to now having a team of people going through all levels. And so that's where it really showed the impact.
So I'll also say that it really depended on the relationship, Stephanie. Like, so I support B2B learning, and many of my contacts in one of my roles are the learning directors. And so then the learning directors would then say, I know what our firm needs and who the people are on the teams and what their learning goals are. I'm assigning and getting this content out. Like we had those 4 role line pathways. I'm assigning these courses to these people based upon what I know about them. And then based on my CAS work, I would be reaching out to the actual leads of those departments, those teams, and then they would start spreading the word.
Got it. Cool. All right. Back to you, Margaret.
So as you gather, it was the most beautiful, crazy experience, and we couldn't have asked for more. So now looking ahead, our focus is evolving from simply proving the concept to enabling meaningful growth. As I'm sure you all gathered from this engaging discussion, we're not just building courses, we're intentionally creating a holistic learning ecosystem as we move forward. So that means personalization and helping learners demonstrate true mastery. Mastery that can support career growth, professional evolution, and confidence in the advisory work that they do. It's definitely not one and done training. Kristen commented on that earlier. This particular group of practitioners in this particular area of the profession is much more interested in continuous professional development, learning that evolves as practitioners grow, as firms mature, and as the profession continues to change. So our goal is an ecosystem of learning that stays relevant over time. We want to be able to build confidence through practice and grow alongside the people and firms that we're here to support.
And so this may look a little familiar to some of you all who maybe have our Talent Suite product, but certainly a vision here to use the Bridge product as a way of making recommendations to learners based on those skills that they want to develop from the pilot.
Exactly. So the roadmap ahead is intentional and deeply collaborative. We're building on what the pilot proved works and scaling it now with confidence. That means, as Stephanie, you just mentioned, scaling role-aligned pathways that reflect how practitioners actually grow across different roles, firm sizes, and stages of their advisory maturity. So it means continuing to co-design with firms. That's a non-negotiable for us. We want to continue to listen closely, to iterate thoughtfully, and ensure learning stays grounded in the real client work that they do. So it means deeply integrating learning across all efforts. So experiences feel connected, they're purposeful, and they're easy to navigate. We don't want a fragmented or transactional type of learning experience that just wouldn't feel good, especially after the work that took place. So the goal is better, more connected learning that can help move the profession in this particular area forward. Learning that's personalized, where we can validate mastery and support continuous development over time. So our roadmap is as ambitious as the pilot was, and it's about creating an ecosystem of learning that grows with the people that we serve, that we continue to update on a regular basis, and we can deliver lasting impact where it matters most.
Back to you, Kristen.
So most organizations don't struggle because they lack vision. There's usually good energy and good intent and a real commitment to the purpose. But then the questions end up getting started. Are we aligned? Do we have enough data? Is the structure right? Is this really truly the best version? So we end up pausing. We tell ourselves that we're being responsible, thoughtful, strategic, and then the momentum fades. This had been our story once before, and we didn't want to repeat it. So this time we made a different choice. We focused on what truly mattered, which was our members, our CAS practitioners, and we made the pilot the main thing. We chose doing over talking, action over thinking, and with each step, something shifted. The work got better because it was in motion. We learned that action creates more insight rather than insight creating action. We didn't wait for clarity to appear. We aligned cross-functional teams around a shared vision, not every single detail. We built learning out in the open. And as Margaret was talking about, like, we embraced the possibility of failure. That really could have been what happened. And we just trusted that it would make the work stronger. So we leaned into our community, knowing learning happens faster when it's shared, even when the path forward isn't fully defined. So if we leave you with anything, you don't have to wait for the perfect conditions to begin. Progress doesn't come from standing still. It comes from starting.
I love it, Kristen. Thank you. Are there, I think this is work. I don't see any comments in the chat, which I feel like is surprising. And oh, Jesse, thank you. Jesse just gave us a little message. Love that quote. Does anyone have any questions? I feel like I've hogged all of the questions and can certainly lean into some more. But does anybody in the audience have any questions for the AICPA team and how they went about running the pilot and what they're going to do with the information? And maybe how Bridge is supporting them. If you have Bridge questions, I'm also happy to answer those. What's your timeline for delivery to production, for lack of a better term?
That's an excellent question.
Well, we got good news today. I'll just share that.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
I
news.
mean, like
We love a
literally,
good
you
news
guys are
Wednesday.
all, you're finding out before half the people in the AICPA. That we did get approval today to move forward with a full rollout of this new product line. So that is truly, truly exciting. It speaks to what we have accomplished with the pilot. So we're on a very accelerated time frame.
Yeah.
Because like as Margaret and I have talked about, like the pilot ended in December, right? And this has been focused around our community and our members, and the members are driving our timeline. And so they're expecting us to go to market and have something for them to see this summer. So,
okay.
Yep.
Crunch
so
time.
be prepared,
Crunch
Stephanie.
time,
It's
ladies.
happening.
Let's go. Yeah.
This train has left the station.
We have like another, like this time I think we have 3 months now. We have
Okay.
4 months to develop 40 courses. And yeah, it's cool. We're going to get it done.
Of course.
And I think too, where it is the most functional is around constant feedback, right? The constant feedback, so that we understand as we're fast tracking that we are listening and we're able to modify and pivot, which can be uncomfortable in situations, because when you want to have a defined plan, this is not the project to do that. And so there are a lot of unknowns. We all have to trust each other, and we have to be able to accelerate these timelines while we're, listening to that customer and that bringing that strategy back in. And so that was the concerted effort of the entire team, so that we could fast track this. So there were a lot of moving parts, but at the end of the day, all the changes, updates, anything that we're doing moving forward, everything that both Kristen, Margaret, and their supporting teams are doing is because what we're hearing.
Yeah.
So,
I'm curious,
and that.
Yeah. I'm curious, again, this is maybe a little different from the audience in regard to like go to market strategy, because you're like right, this is like a product that you are selling. But maybe we can make some ties here of like what kind of, when your executive leadership says, oh yeah, you have approval to go live with this, what does that mean? And do you get like marketing support? Because obviously that's a huge part of it. And I think that can tie into like internal marketing of like efforts that our admins make. But yeah, can you touch on that a little bit?
I think it means everything. The pilot was unexpected. We did have leadership support and alignment around the strategic goals. Today's early notice that we're approved, we got the green light to move forward at the same pace for the timelines that we were discussing. It truly means everything. We are working as a one solid team to help support customers who are super, super eager to get this type of learning as soon as possible. So this is not the Margaret and Kristen and Erica show. This is not just a passion project. This is an association endorsed endeavor that has true value. So anything and everything in between, we're doing this together as one team for our customers, whether they're members currently or aspire to be in the future. That's how we'll approach it.
Any tips on how to get leadership alignment?
It goes back to what Erica mentioned earlier about the pre-work. We cannot give enough credit to the amount of planning that took place and that needs to take place. We don't just come up with ideas and run with them. We debate. We try to figure out what we're missing. We co-design with firms. We ask the customers first-hand feedback. What do you think about this approach? So there was a pretty dense business case that we needed to put together that first told us, are we on the right track? Are we doing the right thing for the company as well as the customers. What does this mean? The basics. What problem are we trying to solve? Really,
Yeah.
how are we going to measure success? Why does this matter? Why do we think that we can do something positive? So taking the time to do that type of work up front also helps with buy-in and getting everybody aligned around that single vision. Because when everything hits our desks and we have to execute, it's very it's a lot to
Yeah.
balance. So we want to make sure that we do this for each other and the customers to be able to get the best solution out there.
Were you all responsible for putting together maybe like a business case for leadership?
We were.
Okay.
We really were. There was
Yeah.
a quite lengthy type of
Sure.
document that
Yeah.
touched on all the right questions. What are we looking for? Why? What indicators do we have that this is even something we should be pursuing? What would the budget look like? Why? What type of approach would be looking into employing for this MVP launch? What is a true MVP? What does it look like? And also, it's not a one and done, like we discussed before. It's not just about putting a few courses together and serving them to the audience. It's about truly listening and providing a comprehensive, holistic solution. That includes learning, but it's not learning exclusive. It's more about an ecosystem that is consistent and complementary to all different parts of the puzzle.
I'm going to tie together kind of some pieces of Jesse's question in the chat and then also the context of your demographic of people, where this really rose out of that 75% of retirees within the next, decade. And what are you guys going to do about it as a body who has responsibility in that conversation? Was there ever a point, or did you do like a survey as part of your business case and the talking with the customer? Did you do any sort of survey proactively in order to get that feedback?
I would, going to Jesse's question, yes, I do recommend sending out a survey. I mean, I think that finding more out about who you are serving and what they're looking for and how to best meet their needs, you then are building your business case, one, and then also finding out what they're actually looking for. We have over 100 data points for all 175 practitioners. So this then also helps us build the learning personas that we need to continue creating the content. So we have a massive amount of data to better understand who we're serving and and the content that we need. It also helped to gain that strategic alignment with our leadership because they saw that we had data and evidence to support the direction, rather than this just being like some harebrained idea that we think, that we're just kind of like throwing a dart at it and maybe something will stick. We actually had some data and evidence to go along with the story and to create the story.
Surveys, interviews, focus groups, multiple times throughout this process to help inform where we are today, and we'll continue to do that. And that's the promise we made to our customers, that they're going to have a seat at the table. We're doing this together.
And that's what will happen for the launch over the summer. It's going to be an MVP, right? It's going to be, we're going to be testing out the entire learning pathway, but it's also before we go out for a full launch in December timeframe and 2027, there's going to be another point in which we're finding out that customer feedback, so that if we need to iterate and evolve, that we have the direction in what we need and the steps we need to take in order to make that content more role aligned.
Amazing. Well, I cannot thank you all enough for joining me today. I was just a little blip on the radar over here asking some questions, but honored to be your partner in all of this and share a similar sentiment. Building a software product aligns very much with you building learning products. And how important you all are to Bridge, and how important all of our admins in the audience are to Bridge. And just very appreciative of you all sharing your story with this group. So thank you everybody for joining. Hope everybody has a great rest of their Wednesday. We will send out the recording of this if you wanted to share it with anybody. Likewise, I know we had some AICPA people in the audience. I see some similar names of people that I haven't even worked with for a while because they were part of implementation. So yeah, just very, very appreciative of your time and everybody else for joining, and hope everybody has a good rest of their day.
Thanks.
Great. Thank
Bye.
you.